afternoon to everyone. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Deepika Deka Madam, Vice Chancellor of Srimanta Shankardev University of Health Science. I have seen our esteemed Dr. R.K. Sharma, advisor, he has also joined. All the participants from different corners of the world, especially from our country, my colleague from University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya. It is the 10th lecture to be delivered by Professor Deepika Madam, and Mehjabin has already introduced. And Madam have a special identity that she is a Lady Vice Chancellor of a university, and it is a health university. I think it is a new chapter for the entire Northeastern region, and which will give a message to all the academic fraternity from the female that they can deliver. It is a kind of hope for everyone that a female can deliver. And I must see, because I am associated with from last 20 years in the northeastern part, and closely monitoring the administration of various educational institutions. We usually discuss among our colleagues that two universities which have been established before 10 years, Srimanta Shankardev University of Health Science and Assam Science and Technology University. And both the university have recently, I think both the university are fortunate that they got two dynamic vice chancellors, Professor Deepika Madam at Srimanta Shankardev University of Health Science and Professor Bora at Assam Science and Technology University. These are the two universities have been established by the government of Assam to offer these special services in the field of science and technology and in the health sector. And I think after joining of the two vice chancellor in two different universities, both the universities getting a new life. And always we see the kind of activities, aggressive activities in different media that something is happening. Otherwise, earlier people are not knowing much about these two institutions. I am very grateful to Professor Deepika Madam that she has visited after joining her university. She has visited many times, and she never say no. Always she say yes. And this time also she is delivering lecture. It is a 10th lecture, and you are all knowing that the 9th number lecture is delivered by UGC Chairman Bangladesh, Professor Mannan sir. And among 10 lectures, this lecture will be a special one, which is related to the health safety measures. Earlier, all are purely academic issues and various issues related to academic. But this time, it is related to the health side because Madam is from the health department. So I wish you all the best. I need not spend much time. And we are very grateful to the Srimanta Shankardev University of Health Science that recently we got affiliation for one of our newly established venture in Karimganj district, in my hometown, Allama TR College of Pharmacy. And it is for information of all the participants. I think it will be the first college that we are going to complete our admission process by 20th of this month. We conducted the entrance test, and from yesterday onwards, admission is going on a huge crowd. And somehow we are managing. And by 20th, our admission will be completed. And in the month of this month, 26 July, Madam will be inaugurating this newly established college through online mode, where Governor of Meghalaya will be giving the inaugural address. And I am very grateful that she has given the affiliation to this college. And in the future, we'll be working under her able guidance, and we'll be working together in the field of academic area in this northeastern part of the country. I welcome everyone to this webinar and wishes all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, the program is now yours, ma'am. Please do the honors. Thank you.
Okay. A very good afternoon to everybody present here. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hogg for inviting me for this lecture. It was in the morning, but unfortunately, there was some meeting in the Medical Council, and I had to tell you to postpone it a little later. I have visited your university several times during the convocation as well as for another meeting, I remember. And it's very impressive. And I'm happy that you are starting the College of Pharmacy. And I'm really excited that you have started this lecture series, which is very, very important for any educational institute, because it is such activities which make the environment of a university very vibrant and academic. So I congratulate you for starting this lecture series, and I'm proud to be one of the participants who will be delivering a talk. So thank you again, and I hope all the participants, I can see that they are coming in large numbers, 149 already. So
Yes, and we are also live on Facebook, ma'am. We are also live on Facebook.
oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sure we will be having some question answer sessions towards the end. And yeah. So when I was given this talk, I was thinking about what safety measures, like people are all the time talking about safety nowadays. Don't do this, don't do that. All the WhatsApp messages, all the videos on YouTube, most of the recent ones are on preventive measures. They're also on facts and some myths as well. So I hope I can dispel some of those today. Now we are a university, you have a big university, I'm also running a big university, and we have certain responsibilities which are of the educational activities. So our prime concern is that the students must not suffer, the work should go on, students should not lose a year, but at the same time, they should be safe and they should be healthy. So the responsibility definitely depends upon the leaders. So what are the responsibilities of the educational institute is definitely is a challenge for the higher education during COVID and the post-COVID period. So I have taken the liberty of covering a little bit during and post-COVID as well, because it's very, very important these days. Like today also, there was a meeting in the Medical Council of India as how to hold the examinations. One of the prime responsibilities of universities is not only taking classes, but also holding the examinations. And that is necessary because without an examination, we cannot grant a degree. So I hope to cover all this today. So the most important thing in the responsibility would be the safety. And this should be creative. You know, it is not just because of the legal issue that we should say that we should be safe. It is our responsibility, it's an ethical responsibility, and we have to understand the importance of managing the health. You see that people are on the roads, they are walking around without masks, they are sitting in groups. So it is very important for us to understand the importance of the health safety measures. But at the same time, there should not be any panic. People should not think that if you have the infection, you're going to die. So there should be a balance. So everyone should be aware of the risk, but not too much. And they should also be pro-measurement health safety measures. They should not think that these measures are too much troublesome, they are too cumbersome, and they are unnecessary, and that they are impinging upon the privacy. So such thoughts should not come in the mind of all our students, all our faculties. Therefore, we must have a very balanced approach. And we must develop strategic approaches to make all the facilities, the education facilities, the facilities in the canteen, the facilities in the hostels, those should be we should have a very good balanced strategic approach and should be just necessary, as safe as necessary. So you don't have to go overboard. You don't have to sit in one room, not talk to anybody. So that is also senseless. At the same time, it is a responsibility of all the educational institutions to teach the capability and assess the developed skills for sensible risk management. We must know what to do when there is an emergency. So these are all the responsibilities of the educational institutions towards it. Now the question arises, can this infection be transmitted in our colleges, in our institutions? Yes. So that is the risk. We know that there are risks in different types. Now, this can occur in the place that you're working. It can occur in the in your college, in the canteen, in the office. there can be risks. They could be of varying degrees. Some of the places would be of a higher risk, and some of the places in the same institution would be having a lower risk. Therefore, the risk of contracting the infection depends upon the chance that you will come in contact with somebody who has an infection. Now, in the late 80s and the early 90s, those who remember, or you should know historically, that there was an infection called human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. And it was so panic. Everyone was so scared of it. They thought that once they had, that HIV, they would die, which is of course true, because they would develop anyway some complications, unlike COVID. But the panic was so much, they used to think that even if you look at somebody with the infection, you will contract it. So you must know the scientific evidence about the virus, about how it carries a risk. How risky can the virus be in your institution? That depends, as I said, on the likelihood of coming in close contact with people who are infected. So therefore, the best approach is you should think that everyone is infected, that the person sitting next to you is infected. Then you will take precautions. Otherwise, you will be casual, you will be careless. Another thing is that you must see how much physical contact you have with the person next to you. Like we as doctors, we have to touch patients. We have to, as teachers and as colleagues, it may not be necessary for you to touch anybody else, but you may do so by chance, while playing, while eating, or even while just chatting. We girls have the habit of touching your friend. So these things. Then comes the contaminated surface and objects. You buy something from the market, you buy some plastic, cover it with plastic, it's covered with plastic. You can get infection from that as well. So you must know how much is the risk, and that is called assessing risk. And then only you will be able to tailor the preventive measure that has to be put in place in your institution. Since I'm talking about various institutions, let us talk about the low risk exposure. A low risk exposure means you're not at high risk. You don't come in close contact with the general public who might be infected. For example, you're working from home. A lot of people in institutions nowadays, you're working from home. You're at home, you're sitting there. The only person coming are your family members, maybe one maid or somebody like that. Okay, so your risk is low. However, if you go to the general public, you go out, you go in the bus, you go to some other place where it is a little crowded, the density of population is more. And then the distancing between one person and another may not be 1 meter. So that, will be problems, especially in schools with younger children. So these are the places where the risk can be higher. And maximum, it is in our health institutions, the nurses, the doctors, and the other public, the policemen, the other places, you see, they come in very close contact. And doctors, are coming in contact with the COVID patients. Also, your servants, your other social workers, they could also be coming in very close contact. Now, who is going to assess the risk as to how much you need? Ultimately, everything depends upon the leader. And the leader will decide what is the risk in consultation with the other students, in consultation with other managers, Then you need to update the risk. The risk today may be different from the risk after 2 days. See, after 2 days, you learn that somebody in your institution has got COVID. So your risk is increased. So that's why you need to every day assess the risk. And maybe, morning, evening also, it may be different. You need to consider what is the environment like. Is there a person with COVID infection in the class? Is there somebody who's working in the canteen, who's working in the kitchen? Maybe the lift man has COVID. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. And for us, it is very, very important when you're dealing with very serious cases. whether you have the protective equipment. I think in your university, you don't need the protective equipment, but for institutions which deal with patients at the very close range, people with very close range, proper PPE is necessary. And then you have to see the feasibility of the protective measures. Do you have enough money to buy the sanitizers? Do you have enough money to buy the PPE? As you know, there was a lot of hue and cry that the PPEs supplied to the doctors was not of good standard. And so the doctors were falling sick. So therefore, you have to see how much you can afford. If you can't afford, you better shut down the institution. Of course, the front accommodation. Students are staying in the hostels. So how safe are the hostels? You need to see that. They don't have a toilet attached. They might be using a common toilet. They're eating food in the mess where everybody goes to eat when they're very, very hungry. So all these things have to be taken into consideration in a teaching institution. Definitely the frontline workers are at higher risk. And the occupational hazards, people who come in more contact with this, even the sweepers in any institution, they are at very high risk because they're cleaning dirty things. They might be coming across people who are infected. And lastly is the risk. We know that people who are very above the age of 60 and people who are younger than 10 years old are at higher risk. Just yesterday, I was in my office. After your lecture came, I actually thought that I should meet my staff. It has come. And so I met the staff and somebody said, age, you're talking about 60 being high risk, but my friend was 30 and he died. So how is it possible? So it's the other high risk conditions. The pre-existing medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and other conditions which decrease the immunity. For example, you have malnutrition, you're very undernourished. And this friend, when I took a better history, found that he was an alcoholic. So these are the people who are at higher risk. So in educational institutions, you need to take the measures for tackling these safety challenges. And you have to adapt to these changes because changes are coming. Change, is the only constant. You have to be taking into consideration the parents. In teaching institutions, parents, like we just had a meeting of all the VCs of health universities across the country 2 days back. Thankfully, I'm not facing such problems, but South India and West Bengal, they are facing a lot of litigation. Litigation because the parents and the public are opposing examinations to be held. They are opposing many other things like even taking the classes because you cannot take examinations without having some practical classes. And without an examination, you will not get a degree. So they want a degree without an examination. That cannot be. And therefore, we had this emergency MCI meeting today. So the other responsibility is the problem is the political concerns. Politicians have their own ideas. They have to think about the whole state, the whole country. You are only concerned about your institutions. Therefore, keeping in view the other safety issues, the state governments pass some orders and then you need to follow them. Okay? Then what is important is for the institutions to give safety education in the curriculum. See, now looks like we are going to live with COVID. So you must know how to be safe from COVID. For example, we never had a chapter on how to, look after patients with HIV, look after patients with hepatitis. Now we have a very important even seminars we have which are on precautions, universal precautions, how to do them, how to carry them out. So your education, safety education must be included in the curriculum henceforth. You will have to teach everybody how to be safe, how to keep others safe. And this needs leadership and management in teaching safety, teaching safely. So these are all integral parts of it. So it is very important for the health measures that the leader of the institution should be of a quality, certain quality, who will be able to carry out all these new challenges very, very appropriately. The senior teaching staff and the non-teaching staff also should be educated, and they should be able to carry out all the duties which are required for maintenance of the health safety measures in the educational institutions. Now there are policies as well. So every institution must have their own policies, must have their own rules, and they must be very clear. And there should be a monitoring mechanism. It is very important that you should use the information which is coming in every day. Today somebody has fallen sick, tomorrow something else has happened. What is the new rules and regulations? So you have to be up to date on your information and use it to review and learn from them, so that you can improve the future arrangements, and continuously you have to improve your safety measures. Every institution must have a sick room. I know they have it, but now you must have a special COVID sick room, so that there is no problem with managing other cases that come in. Because we might have to live with COVID, as I said, for the next 7 years. Therefore, it is necessary. And this room should be equipped with first aid and other items necessary to tackle. Every institution must have the referral procedures in place. For example, you find that a student has come with cough, fever, looks like the child or the person has COVID. You mustn't just push him away and say, go home. You have to take the responsibility. The student's responsibility is yours. So you must liaison with the COVID centers nearby, the hospitals, even how to do the testing, even how to get the admissions done for the student. So all these things must be in place in every institution from now on. Certainly, the most important thing is infection control. The heads of the institution should follow guidance provided by the health authorities, especially in relation to the vulnerable cohorts and physical distancing, sanitation. We are talking about this every day, and this is to be repeated every day. There are social informations available on the government websites. I know that there are a lot of WhatsApp groups which are giving false information. So please, these myths have to be busted, and you should go to the government websites. The government has very good websites, and these are the authentic ones. They provide the facts and the information and practical strategies relating to the infection prevention and control. The head of the institution should ensure that the staff regularly read themselves, up to date themselves, and they should register. There are always sessions on well-being. So these sessions have to be attended. Like in my institution, yesterday I had a meeting with all my staff. So we need to know how they are. Is anybody sick? Do they need any help? And whether they are following all the measures. So it is very important for the staff and the faculty to attend these sessions. For personal protective equipment, as I said, the videos also should be seen, because new things are happening every day. Now, the other day, there was a video on how to do cleansing of the nose. You see, so just pushing in warm saline, warm water through the nostrils. And that way, it seems you can actually bring down the chance of infection, even if you're exposed to a COVID patient. So new instructional videos keep coming in, and YouTube is doing a very good job. So these things you need to see. So what are the key measures to protect against COVID-19 that should be undertaken by all institutions? Certainly, prevention. Prevention is better than cure. And it goes without saying, we all know about it, about frequent hand washing, disinfection. So all the rooms, all the faculty rooms, the students, in fact, I tell all the doctors should carry their own disinfectants, their sanitizers in their bags. They should maintain the physical distancing. There should be clear policies of training, and people with the infection, someone is coming with fever, that person should not be allowed inside the campus. So at the entrance itself, temperature should be checked. A short history should be taken, whether you are having fever, whether you are having cough, and that person should not be allowed to enter the campus. And if somebody falls sick during the course of their stay in the institution, as I said, you should be able to manage them, to instruct them for self-isolation, contact the medical professional, the local COVID information and helpline for advice on how to test and what to do next, where to go, where to be referred. In fact, just yesterday, I had a call from BBCI, which is a cancer hospital with, so much facilities. Even from there, a doctor called me up because she was doing a fellowship and she was from Delhi. So she called me up and she said, what to do? Please get me a bed in Guwahati Medical College. Now, Guwahati Medical College, they didn't have any beds. So I said, why don't you stay in your place only? So you see, we need to know what to say, what to do. So counseling is very important. What are the other additional measures? Well, daily cleaning and disinfection of the surfaces which are touched regularly. The computer screens, especially if there are many people using one computer. If I'm using my own computer and nobody else is touching, then it doesn't make sense that I should keep on cleaning it. Okay. But if a computer is used by various people, different people, then definitely it needs to be clean. The bathrooms, that is one big source of infection. The lifts, the staircase, all these things, places should be cleaned regularly, every 3 to 4 hours with sanitizer. Ventilation should be good, and we should enhance regular hand hygiene, require the staff to wear face masks. You should actually cover your eyes. You should cover your eyes because people don't talk about it, but because eyes also is one route by which you can contact the infection. In fact, I really want to say that if you wear the headgear, which covers from top to here, is better than just a mask. Very often you take out the mask when you're you get a little suffocated, you tend to pull it down from your nose. So I personally find that the plastic headgear is a better way than the mask. Next thing is the clothes that you're wearing to the office, to your institution. When you go back home, you need to take them off before you enter the house. So just near the door, you should have a room where you can change, wash, and then only you enter the house. Take off your shoes, take off your chappals, and prevent infection to a greater degree. Now let us talk about the measures lift post-COVID. So what will happen when suddenly you are told, go back to work? Lockdown has been lifted. But this infection is not like a light switch. You switch it on and light comes and you switch it off and the light goes. There is a transition period before the infection will totally disappear from the world. This transition period, you may have to go to work. You may have to go to the institution to take classes, to attend classes, do examinations. So we are thinking that we shall be holding the MBBS and the other examinations by September. So hardly a few days. I don't think the infection will go away. So what to do? We must use again, health measures. So you plan from now on very carefully, and you put in place the preventive measures. All possible risks for safety and health should be assessed, such as resulting from reduced maintenance of facilities. So some of the facilities are not well kept. So before you open the doors of your institution, get the whole thing checked. Whether the chairs and tables, everything is clean, the AC is working, they have been cleaned or not. The water tanks, are they clean? The coolers, you see, those things have to be checked. You must not overlook all those. If you rush and do it and say, okay, from tomorrow we will start classes, then you will land up in serious problem because infections will just be brought in You are not prepared for your preventive health measures. So go slow, plan it out, what should be in place before you allow the students to or the workers in institutions to begin to work actively. There are certain concerns about air conditioning. People were saying don't use air conditioners. But WHO, as you know, they have really got a bad name now. They keep changing their recommendations. But right now, they say that you must have, for medium and high research, increased ventilation through natural aeration or artificial ventilation, preferably without recurve circulation. So the vent should be open. The filters should be cleaned regularly if you are not able to do without air conditioners and less people inside the room, so that we have clean, fresh air. The interesting thing is that we have academic bodies which supervise institutions. Like the medical colleges are supervised by the Medical Council of India, the nursing colleges by the Nursing Council, Dental Council, and so on. So it's very, very important that these are wise people sitting at the head of the tables, and they are looking into the health safety measures of the institutions under them. And therefore, in the vice chancellors, we keep having meetings about how to do the health measures to improve the safety of the students and the faculty. So we should follow the rules. And secondly, we have to assist these institutions in regulation for the conduct of classes, examinations, to prevent litigations as well. Again, COVID has brought in a lot of different problems, mental and physical problems in the current context. So there are early intervention programs. Have you heard of MONON? This is a facility which provides stress-related and mental problem-related consultations. And I'm very proud to say that Dr. Maithili Hazarika, who is a faculty at Guwahati Medical College, is the nodal officer for MONON, and their aim is to see that the society, especially the COVID patients, remain stress-free. And they provide psychological management by phone calls, by having videos. So you should be aware that such interventional programs are available in our state. So once the colleges open, once the institutions open, how do we ensure the safety and security of the teachers, the staff, and the students? Only those who are asymptomatic, who do not have any problems, should be allowed to enter. And only after we know that all the safety requirements are in place. Temperature should be checked at the entry. You must be slow in entering, and don't say that, don't worry, I'm okay. No, the temperature must be checked. No one with fever, cough, or other symptoms should be allowed. If there is somebody who has a contact in the family, that person should not be allowed. A person who is in contact with a COVID person should be in quarantine, whether in an institution or whether at home. So you need to ask, does anybody in your family have COVID? If yes, don't allow. At the point of entry and exit, you should have disinfectants. Either you wash your hands with soap and water without, preferably the water should be managed by a foot pump, or you should have sanitizers. Toilets should have sufficient amount of hand cleansers, and if you should have dustbins that can be opened with the foot. If you have to touch it again with the hand after cleaning, it's not reasonable. Disposal paper towels. So all these things need a little bit of investment. So that is also necessary. As I said, the rooms and surfaces must be cleaned every 3 to 4 hours when many people are using. If you are alone in your room, you don't have to clean it 3-4 hours. Don't waste the sanitizer and your time. Okay? And see that the room is well ventilated, there is good free air coming in. Now this work from home, should that be continued? There is a lot of debate on that. And many people think that even during the interim period before COVID goes away, we should continue with work from home as much as we can. I think it is quite sensible. And what we have been instructed by the education advisor education, Mr. Mihir Chaudhary, is that we should divide the curriculum into must know, should know, and may know. So the must know part we should teach in the schools and the colleges. The may know can be done online, and the must know should be face to face, physical. The should know can be done online. So you have a blended education. And the may know, especially higher education, we are talking about higher education. I always tell my postgraduates, you all are mature people. You should be reading from the books yourself. So self-reading is important. So here we comes in self-reading. So you prevent people from gathering. Faculty, teachers can build their own classrooms. They can be in their office, in the building. They don't have to be in the class. And as students come in, especially the weaker students who need consultation, they can come in one by one or 2, 3 at a time. But you don't have to have the bigger gatherings, the 200 students in one classroom gathering to begin with. Also, teachers who have having symptoms should not be allowed. Okay, and meetings and seminars, conferences and all, which are face to face, physical, should not be entertained. How do you do convocation, graduation ceremonies? Well, I have attended one of your convocations, and I think there were at least about 10,000 people. Well, that era is gone. That era is gone totally. Now you will do convocations only with the people who are going to get the degree, maybe only with the people who are getting the PhD or the prizes. No parents, no friends. So everything has to be curtailed. Okay? Or maybe you will just go for one class one time. You're doing only for undergraduates. Then 1 week later, you're doing for postgraduates. So you have to devise, you have to be flexible how you will do the convocations. And it is better that you do them outside, not inside a closed room. Now, we especially have to keep ourselves updated. We do a lot of seminars and symposia and conferences. Now, these big gatherings are again out. I don't know when they will come back. So when they come, we will think about it. But as of now, they are out of the question. But they are needed. You need to be updated. You need to hold workshops. You need to hold seminars. So do it like this, like a webinar. They're very useful. I find it very comfortable. So sitting in my house, I can have a cup of tea. I can be very comfortable, and it's very convenient for me. I don't have to go in this traffic. Okay. And you see, I can see that there are 200 people now, and you are saying that there are more people on Facebook. So many people can join in very comfortably from their homes. But the problem is still internet network. I like this sentence somebody said the other day, that internet is going to be like electricity. The way electricity has reached the villages, internet has to reach the villages. It is on its way. However, sound and the speed still need a lot of improvement. But the problem is it is not hands-on. What we need in medicine is we have to teach surgeries, we have to teach how to do some hands-on procedures. Those cannot be done. So we'll have to invest. And then some people still do not have access to the very smartphones. So that is again a problem in a poor country like ours. So when you're doing teaching webinars, you must also do well-being webinars. And these are how to stay safe and well, and how to lead for well-being. This should include topics like managing anxiety, how to have conversation. One good thing which has occurred out of the COVID is that I have reconnected with my school friends, with my college friends. I never had time before. So now I have time, we're meeting, we are so friendly, we are so busy that if for 1 hour I don't talk, use the WhatsApp, I find that there are 200 messages. So this has really increased and we feel nice that somebody is talking to us. So it's very important that we have the social connections. As you know that I'm here alone in Guwahati, my family is in Delhi, my husband, Dr. Ramesh Deka, my 2 sons, my 2 bahus, and my granddaughter are in Delhi. I should actually be feeling very lonely and very depressed, but I'm not, because I'm doing Google Duo video chat every evening, and whenever I want to do, I'm not using the phone, I'm using Google Duo, and I'm chatting with them, or I'm using the video talks. So these are some advantages of the COVID lockdown, that you are communicating more with people, and that helps you in keeping mentally well. So mental health is very, very important. Another thing you must have read in the papers also is that violence has increased. Domestic violence has increased. Violence against children has increased. So it's very, very important that violence in the workplace also will increase. So we should keep our cool. We should have meditation. The principals and institutions should share a responsibility of maintaining a respect towards each other, so that you have a respectful environment. And we have a statement of values which will set out clear expectations. We must not lose our cool. And so this will help in dealing with the behaviors when they fall sick. But if very violence occurs, you must have a post-incident checklist. Why did it happen? It should not happen again. And what we can do to improve that violence. So that also has to be considered by the institutions, because mental health is not just an absence of disease. It is a well-being, physical and mental. So mental health is very important. The leader should be open. You should be accessible to other people. You should not be shut off in your room. So if anybody wants to come and meet you with your problems, you must have to listen to them. We must check on the staff, because this is very trying times, very stressful times. So we must see how the staff are feeling, check in very often, maybe once in a week or once in 2 times a week, depending. Must tell them what is there, what is not there, and that they are safe and that they are supported. So all these things will improve the psychology of your staff and the students. Especially some of the students staying in the hostel, away from the families, away from their homes. They might be feeling lonely, they might be feeling stressed out. So you need to give them a helping hand. So all these things are very important. Online socialization, this is important. You must feel like you are part of a team. So virtual, you must organize social catch-ups. You should share jokes. Not just share only educational material and things like that. So jokes and other things should be shared in the social groups, not in the main group. So in my university, I have 2 groups. One is a SSUHS group and the other one is a SSUHS social group. So over there, we give the jokes and the photographs and everything. But in the official group, we don't you send all those good mornings and good evenings, because if you have too many things in that WhatsApp, you will miss the important points. If I say that, you know, I have a meeting, and you miss it because there are so many messages. So it's very important that you have 2 groups, one for official purpose and one for social purpose. Emails also like that. I have 2 emails, one personal and one official. so that my personal message email, everybody can send me their jokes and everything, but an official email is only for official purpose. Otherwise, I will miss things like an invitation to USTM. What about keeping physically fit? Mentally fit we talked about. So you cannot go to the gym, but yes, you have a TV at home. So you put the TV on, put on some very nice music and work out at home. The 30 minutes activity, physical activity is a must. And you must be hearing all this, Sadhguruji and other gurus who talk about physical activity, that you must do exercise, you must do yoga at least for 30 minutes every day. So meditation, all these things are very, very important. There are very nice workout videos, daily physical activity tips, which can help the students and the staff find ways to meet their daily activity target. So at least 30 minutes of physical activity every day is a must. In fact, every institution can start their own website. They start their own mobile apps, and you motivate the family, the friends and colleagues to be active even while they are in lockdown. So when you go back to work, again, as I said, that you may have to make the classes smaller groups, not more than 10 or 20. And indoor activities also you can permit, but with the smaller groups. And whereas in research organizations and research institutions, universities, it is not much of a problem. So we have to see that the students and teachers in the room should be avoided. So people who are above 60 can actually take voluntary retirement, I feel. And people who are not well, the blood pressure, blood sugars are not controlled. These are people who should not be actually on the rolls. There is consideration for taking voluntary retirement by these people, or at least work from home, or given duties where they can be at a safe distance, much safer. So you may have to change the working responsibilities of the high-risk group. I'm only talking about the high-risk group. Or you will find other solutions to support the students who need additional support. So some of the students, online is not enough. They need some more coaching. So maybe the faculty can invite those weaker students to come and meet them personally. So personal teaching aids also must be used. What about canteen? Will you open the canteen? Well, where else can you use for eat? So even when the university is open now, but we are not getting food, so we are carrying food from home and missing out on the hot food. So the canteens also should be very clean, and disinfections should be there. All the preventive health measures should be there, and surfaces should be cleaned. The tables should be far away, not very cluttered. So I think I have covered quite a lot of stuff, and I would like to thank USTM for inviting me, to giving me the chance to talk to so many people about this, how to teach safety and learn safety. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This session was an eye-opener for all of us. We had so many things because, as you said, like the social media had so many like knowledge that they had given us that we did not know what was actually true, what to believe, what not to believe. But ma'am, your session had been an eye-opener. We really had we are now more prepared to serve our student community, especially. We are more equipped now because the things that you had said has really helped us. Ma'am, there are few questions, there are many questions, but most of the things you had taken up in your presentation, but few 2-3 questions are coming, especially on asymptomatic patients, deaths of asymptomatic patients. So ma'am, how do we tackle that, ma'am?
I have actually started a research on this asymptomatic patients. They're really not just, asymptomatic. They're hiding lots of things, like some of them are alcoholics, some of them have diabetes. People don't like to tell that I have diabetes. They don't like to say that they have high blood pressure or heart disease. They think, that there is a stigma. But when this infection, this coronavirus attacks the heart, attacks the liver, it attacks all the systems of the body, So therefore, if somebody is there who has a comorbid condition which is not there, as I said yesterday only, one of my staff said, "Mur bondhu 30 bosorar teo just infection hole aru mori thikil." Tete moi koisu mane diabetes ase niki bole nai, herik ase niki, high blood pressure bole nai, mod khai niki, oh baido apuni dhori lole. You see, so people hide, people hide. Okay, then medically there is another thing called viral load. Okay, viral load. The virus to যেতিয়া আহিছে নহয় বডিত, তেতিয়া কিছুমানৰ মানে দূৰৰ পৰা আহিছে কম আছে. There is a load of the virus which is entering the body. So your body can develop the immunity. If your body has good immunity, you will develop antibodies against the virus and you are able to tackle. But there are some people who are having very low immunity. Ita apni kabar mukhat sapne kobo nware je vitamin D kiman ase,
high immunity or low immunity.
Okay, you can't say, and maybe that person has very low immunity. Khaboloi mane swali bela kismane ajikali iman besi dieting kore, kiote vitamins na khai, sabzi vegetables na khai lorasli. You see, so there are many other factors besides being asymptomatic. So these are also very important. The comorbidities which are needed.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, another thing which you have said, you like online socialization. I think, ma'am, this was also appreciated by a lot of our participants, because this is a time where they can fully properly utilize the time. As you said, you had,
I think they are doing already.
Yes, you have found friends who had have not met a long time back. So, ma'am, I think this is a mantra for mental health being well-being, ma'am. Because because we are mainly
very necessary, because kisman students ki jani hosla okole kole thake, moi jane ke kusu okole thake, kintu I don't feel lonely, because like etia moi iman manu log pai asu, moi ratipa eta meeting korisu aru Google Duo koru, moi mor family logot horai godli mo koru, kion blakeo mane online kam sam kori thake, just godli we literally actually have dinner together. Moi eta khao yoda ta khai. So you have to devise means by which you will be mentally happy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. On that note only, ma'am, another thing, student, mainly because, the students, strata that we are dealing with are mainly adolescents and young adults. So they are now locked in their homes with their parents or alone in hostels. So they have a lot of, especially who are with their parents, there's a constant, pressure from the parents also, unknowingly, go to your study, pohia sone, for a lot. That thing, how do parents also, ma'am, deal, or how do faculties in that case help the students in that, ma'am?
I think you're giving me a new idea that actually you might counsel the parents also. You might need to counsel the parents also.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because the whole day they are with the students, and
domestic violence has increased, and there are real statistics which my psychiatry department have seen, that the violence towards children has increased.
Okay. Yes.
Not just couples, fighting against each other, but there's children black or brought, and all these things are very, very sad, because they have nothing to do. The Idle Mind is a workshop. And so you have to keep busy. So yesterday when I called Dr. Maithili Hazarika, she also came over, and she was counseling, she was talking to my staff on how to get. So it's very important that don't think that you have nothing to do. You can do anything at any time. You must have a structured routine. When you went to work, you got up at a certain time, ga dhuisila, bhat khaisila, college at goisa, then you came back, you did this, that. Now, it should not be that you can get up at 9 o'clock, you can go to bath at 4 o'clock. No. You must maintain a structured routine, a timetable, etu samoyt moi uthim, etu samoyt moi exercise korim, should be there. Ekhini samoyt moi TV sam, and ekhini samoyt moi embroidery korim. you see,
Take up a
develop some
hobby,
hobbies.
take up a
Develop
hobby.
some hobbies.
Hmm.
এইখিনি সময়ত মই গাৰ্ডেনিং কৰিম, পানী আহে এইটো সময়ত, কিছুমান মানুহৰ ঘৰত পানী অলপমান সময় নাই, এইখিনি সময় মই, so it is very very important. মই ভাবাই নাছিলো যে ইমান ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট হ'ব পাৰে। কাৰণ ৰাতিপুৱা মই দেৰিকে উঠো, মই ভাবিছো কিনো কৰিম সোনকালে উঠি পেলাই এনেকুৱা, তাৰপিছত মোৰ লেথাৰ্জিক লাগি যায় গোটেই দিনটো।
Yes, ma'am.
So now I'm getting up regularly,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you know, coffee eta banai pe paper pabe, so I do some little bit of exercise. So all these things are very very important, whether it is you or the parents. And you see, children, the teenagers can talk to their parents.
Hmm.
That is another thing that she told us, is that communication is most important. Like the parents will like is on about a night kori thake, so you talk with them. Talk, the student, are they listening, the children? So talk to your parents, but don't shout at them. Talk in a very diplomatic, in a civilized manner, and they will definitely understand. After all, they love you.
Thank you, ma'am. It was such a very enriched session. Ma'am, we have Dr. Rashmi Rekha Borua, our senior faculty from University of Science and Technology,
Oh,
Meghalaya. Yes, Rashmi, we request you to kindly present a vote of thanks.
Yeah,
Dr.
thank
Rashmi.
you. A very good afternoon to respected Professor Deepika Dekka ma'am, Vice Chancellor, Srimanta Sankardev University of Health and Sciences, Mr. Mohbubul Haq sir, Honorable Chancellor, University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya, panelists, participants of today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen. In the beginning, I would like to express my profound gratitude to our esteemed speaker of today's webinar lecture, Professor Deepika Dekka ma'am, for sharing her knowledge regarding today's topic. As we know that every educational institutions have a primary duty to safeguard their staff and students in their care, while at the same time creating the risk-aware citizens of tomorrow. Moreover, the coronavirus outbreak is still evolving globally and remains a public health emergency of international concern. Ma'am has explained very well about how important it is for all of us to know in detail about a particular disease or infection, the level of risk that is associated with that infection, etc., so that we can take the and preventive measures related to that disease. In fact, ma'am has explained so well about different interventions to reduce the stress level of people, as these diseases have a negative impact on mental and physical health. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for your very interesting and knowledgeable lecture. Thank you, ma'am. I would also like to convey my heartfelt thanks to our Honorable Chancellor Sri Mohbubul Haq sir, without whose support we would not have been able to organize this webinar. In fact, here, ma'am, I would like to say one thing. Our university, of course, under the supervision of Honorable Chancellor sir, always gives importance for staff and students' health and safety. And therefore, ma'am, we are already ready with preventive guidelines and SOP to make USTM a COVID-free campus. The guidelines given in this SOP will basically help our staff and students to understand the importance of managing health and safety in a proportional and planned way at the time of this COVID-19. Thank you, sir. We are extremely grateful to Dr. Mridul Hajarika sir, Vice Chancellor USTM, Professor Sohail Sabi sir, Pro Vice Chancellor USTM, Dr. R.K. Sharma sir, Advisor ERTF, Registrar, Academic Registrar, Deputy Registrar, and other higher officials of USTM for giving us the moral support and continuous guidance to conduct this webinar. I would also like to say thank you to all the administrative and technical staff for smooth functioning of this webinar. Last but not the least, we are very grateful to all the participants for attending this webinar. I'm very sure that all of us learned many things which will be really beneficial for us for the coming days. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi. Ma'am, this session was really great, and we hope all the participants join us in the next session, which will be chaired by Professor Yasmin Saikia. She's the professor from Arizona University, USA, on the 20th of July. We will meet you then. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you on the 26th for the virtual inauguration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.